Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Spooky Spencer, and thank you for joining us in the Paranormal Podcast for your personal needs. We are here today with a viral sensation from 6 years ago, Gemma Ramsey. You may be asking who this person is. Well, if you're a constant listener and tracker of the supernatural, in 2015, an orange beam mysteriously killed several firefighters. However, it wasn't from being burned. They were crushed to death. Gemma says the orange beam is her sister, and according to these police documents, with recorded statements, it seems to back it up. Can you please elaborate on what happened that day? I'm on the edge of my seat.
Hello, thank you for inviting me, Spooky Spencer. It's a pleasure to have me. You said you have a few questions for me?
Yes I do. I just have a few questions about your sister. Orange light. What hobbies did she have?
She loved cutting out tan blonde women in magazines, which caused her to get into self-tanning lotions.
So she was slightly obsessed with skin tan lotion?
Yeah, I can't tell you why exactly. I don't really understand it myself, but she was heavily into Britney Spears, so maybe that was the culprit?
When did you start noticing anything strange about her?
Around 2014, she started self-tanning with all kinds of lotions and creams to make herself look orange. She was pretty normal before that, until puberty hit, so everyone thought it was, just a phase she would grow out of eventually.
Interesting. And do you have any nicknames for her? Specifically on the tanning lotion.
Yeah. Even towards the end, my mom called her Oompa Loompa, and for just a while, not even, it was even before the incident, I would call her Tangerine Girl, Go Mango, Oompa Loompa, Origina, just make fun of that entire thing.
And for about how long was she using this lotion?
I would say self-tanners for about a year. But she only used that jam jar substance of dye only once. I don't know why she thought of putting it on instead of self-tanning lotion. I know we were out, but I don't know why she thought it was necessary to.
So she put in a random substance. It wasn't the tanning lotion that turned her into this light.
No. It was a dye substance, or so we assume, that was from my mom, who is an inventor. She created this Stuffed Muffin Corporation and the Stuffed Muffin trademark, and so she was experimenting with her next project. And for a while, she was experimenting with different dyes, and she would get them shipped from all over the world. Nothing too out of the ordinary, until one day my sister and my mom got into a big fight, mostly because my mom forgot to buy self-tanning lotion, and my sister was so upset she slammed the door, and we didn't hear from her until the next morning. And the next morning I found a small jam jar with a language I do not recognize on her windowsill, and it was empty. So I assume she used one of the dyes to dye her skin orange.
So it was a special dye.
Yeah, we don't know where it came from.
If only we had that information.
Yeah, if only.
How did she act after using this lotion?
She called herself her Imminence, and she would basically talk like she was a god and she was actually wanting to conquer the world. She was very egotistical, let's just say.
She had something like a Napoleon complex.
You could say that.
And how were the living conditions inside the house with her after she used the strange jam or substance?
Oh, God. Beforehand, we were pretty normal. We were 3 kids living with a single mother, and since our mom was very successful, we lived comfortably. But we had our quirks, but nothing quite like this. After she put on the self-tanning lotion, she basically made everyone her personal slave.
That is very strange. How did she get away with that?
She had these powers. For some reason, I wasn't fixed to the ground or anything. I couldn't move. Like, no matter how hard I tried, I wasn't stuck. I literally just couldn't move my legs. And she would use that constantly. So
she was able to restrain you at will.
Basically, yes.
And does this have to do anything with dead firefighters?
Oh god, the dead firefighters. I feel really bad for them because it's an honest mistake. The entire house was glowing orange. Big orange light that has been seen in many videos. You would expect a few firefighters to come along. And they basically broke through the windows, smashed open the door, and of course, her Imminence, my sister, thought this was an attack on her specifically, and so she basically turned them into goo.
Yikes.
Yeah.
How did you get away from such a powerful person?
It was not easy, honestly. And it wasn't even from our own volition. It's not as if we didn't try to get away or try to do anything. We first tried washing her off with a hose, you know, the train of thought thinking of no more orange on the skin would equal no more torture for us. When that didn't work, we tried poisoning her. It didn't work, of course. It was so weird seeing her take, like, the solvent that was in her food, taste it, ask what it was, and when we showed it to her, she didn't get mad. Instead, she started, I think she liked the taste of it. It was a little weird, and my brother would go on chocolate runs for her, and he would leave the house, and he was the only one who could leave the house. I wasn't able to leave the house, Mom wasn't able to leave the house, but my brother, he could leave the house. And so my brother, on one of his chocolate runs, tried to alert the authorities. They're like, hey, we're in trouble. But he did it in a way that wasn't beneficial to us. Instead, he went, hey, my sister turned into a orange glowing being, and now we're trapped. You can imagine how well that turned out. We were still there for a while.
I also heard there were sightings of aliens, ones that weren't yourselves.
Yeah, like these blue, like, beams of light, and they came down to actually take her away. I don't know if it was like some sort of prophecy. I don't know.
Specifically blue?
Yeah, it was specifically blue. I don't know why.
Miss Gemma, do you feel like the pictures and speculations going on about your sister, the Orange Light?
I honestly don't think I've heard anyone speculate the correct answer. of course, it's the internet, people would get religious about it, saying it's like the coming of the Messiah, or it's the Antichrist, you know? And this was back in 2015, and so the next year, in 2016, when the election came around, people thought it was a marketing ploy for a specific candidate, which it wasn't. It was just my sister being abducted. But people called it fake news, and they would get so angry. For a while, we had death threats, like, come into our mail daily. It was awful.
Have you had any contact with her since she was abducted?
No. Basically, we kind of treat her as if she was dead. I don't know if I'll ever get to see her again, unfortunately. Especially after all this time. I mean, it's been 6 years. Why would she come back now, you know?
Quite so.
Yeah, but...
Now, how did your parents take the news of your sister being orange light and disappearing?
Well, as I said, my parents are divorced. So, as you can sort of guess, my dad wasn't there during the entire thing. So, yeah, it...
I was very surprised then.
Yeah, so we told him that Lilith, my sister's name was Lilith, just said she was abducted. However, he started to file a missing persons report and started looking everywhere for my sister, and had to tell him the truth. Let's just say he did not take the news well, and he erupted into anger, saying how lying to him isn't a good idea, and how dare I joke at a time like this, blah blah blah. Stuff you would assume he would say if you put yourself in his shoes. You know, your daughter who's been missing for a few months at this point, just all of a sudden you're telling him that he was abducted.
Some light that was raised into the sky, never to be seen again.
Yeah, so he did not take that well.
I can see why he didn't believe that.
Yeah. He actually, behind our backs, we found this later out, he hired many private investigators in order to go and search for her, because, of course, he didn't believe us when we were telling the truth. He didn't believe that we were, saying that she got abducted by aliens. Of course he didn't believe us. But yeah, he borrowed so much money for, like, the top tier private investigators, like, ever. And of course they came back empty because she's gone and abducted by aliens. And so he was found in a lot of debt, and I mean a lot of debt. And he borrowed money from pretty shady people, I'd say. And he had a quote-unquote side business, let's just say that, and he got arrested because of the side business, and he was only dealing because he wanted to get the money to pay it back so he could also keep on paying the private investigators. I think all that stress and everything, and I don't know if he tried any of what he dealt, but I would assume probably, he started going insane. And so while they were trying to sentence him for his crime, a psychologist actually found him clinically insane, and now he's in a mental institution, and he's been there for a long time. He's been there for, I think, a year or two now.
Sister becomes a light and goes into the heavens, and your father goes insane of the aftermath.
Yeah.
Sounds like bad for years.
Yeah, it's been rough. Trust me. It's a wonder I didn't as well. I mean, with all that I saw, I was the only one who was rational enough.
That's all for today on the Paranormal Podcast with a pretty personal story with Gemma Ramsey, who survived what seems to be a traumatizing experience that we can see in this full and detailed case report, even her stories for today. Well, this was 6 years ago, 2015. Sometimes a post will resurface again, creating more questions. While I might not have all the answers, my dear listeners, I do have the means to find them. Thank you so much, Gemma, for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was fun to finally tell my sister's story.